Welcome to the Essential 99 Punctuation Rules for Court Reporters, video number 22, Quotation Marks, Part 2. I'm Ken Wick. Let's get started. So this video covers quotation marks in ebooks, the ebook rules 39 and 40, which are quotation marks with periods, commas, semicolons, and colons, and dashes and question marks. So, with quotation marks, place a period or comma inside closing quotation marks. Place a semicolon or colon outside closing quotation marks. I've already made reference to the when I was going through signal phrases that the notice that the comma goes inside the closing quotation mark, but this is the actual rule, or we've gotten to the rule that says yes, it goes inside the closing quotation mark. So, but we'll start off with semicolons and colons. So here we have the company motto was efficiency. Now it's simplicity. Notice that this semicolon goes outside of the closing quotation mark. This is always true. So this is a nice thing. Periods and commas always go inside closing quotation marks, and semicolons and colons always go outside closing quotation marks. Oh, and I should say here's actually an example of a period inside a closing quotation mark. We include two things under other, then a colon, phone conversations, and personal visits. So since this is a colon, we have a quotation. It goes, this is a colon, it goes outside the closing quotation. Period and comma. He said, hold the elevator. Closing, here's a closing quote. The period goes inside. And once again, Mary used satire in her poem, Scorned. We have a quotation marks. The period goes inside. Just another example of, this is I recall saying it's technically not a record. Now notice, so here's double quotes and then a single quote. And even the period goes inside of the single quote. So if you have a period and you have a single quote and double quote, it's not the single quote, period, double quote. It's actually the period goes inside the quotes. So it even goes inside of the single quote. Now for the comma, hold the elevator, and then he said, the signal phrase he said, we have the quote, and the comma goes inside the closing quotation, the closing quote. And again, scorned, she said, is hilarious. So must be talking about the poem. But this quotation mark, we have a comma, we actually have an interrupting signal phrase, and the comma goes inside the quotation mark. What about dashes and question marks? Well, before I even read this, basically it's, I'll just read it. Place a question mark or dash inside the quotation marks if it is part of the original quote. If it is not part of the original quote, then place it outside the quotation marks. You can just leave it there. And then this lesson is just really clarifying because this question comes up. But I could actually have just left that rule with these two sentences. If the question mark applies to both, meaning the quote and the sentence, then place it inside the quotation mark. But notice that I could have just said, since it applies to both, meaning the quote and the sentence. And if it applies to the sentence, then you put it inside. But this is just a clarifying sentence. So part of the original quote, so if it's a part of the original quote, it goes inside. Do you want your receipt? She asked. So we are quoting a question, therefore it goes inside. She asked, did you sign the agreement? Since we're quoting a question, the question mark goes inside. Then the dash. The deposition states, I saw the defendant dash. So we're actually quoting an interruption or quoting something with a dash. Probably more likely to occur maybe with a document. But if the dash is part of the original quote, then you put it inside the closing quotation mark. Not part of the original quote. Who first yelled fire? So fire is not part of, this, or the question mark. It's not like someone yelled fire with a question mark, fire, but fire. So who first yelled fire? So it's actually since this fire is just a word that someone's saying. Basically, the question mark applies to the sentence, not to the quote. So it goes outside of the closing quotation or quotation mark. Did he say, hold the elevator? So once again, the question is not part of the quote, hold the elevator. It's actually part of the sentence. Therefore, it goes outside the closing quotation mark. An answer, like part of Q&A, I just didn't decide to put a question. Answer. I heard them say, let's murder, and then there's a dash indicating it's not part of the quote. Oh, then maybe someone says, those exact words. So basically, the person got interrupted. Heard them say, let's murder, and then the person asking questions interrupts. So since it's not part, the dash is showing the interruption. It's not, so it goes outside because it's part of the interruption, not part of the quote. Or maybe the person's not quoting someone who got interrupted, but got interrupted. Question mark applies to both, but we already learned that if it applies to the question, it goes inside the quote. But just to clarify, did she ask, did you sign the agreement? So you can actually see how the sentence is a question and the quote is a part of a question. Since it's part of both, it goes inside. Did I already inquire? Where do you currently work? So once again, the sentence is a question and the quote is a question. So therefore, the quotation mark or the question mark goes inside the quotation. Like I said, you can just boil this rule down to if a question mark goes inside if it's part of the if you're quoting a question, which you are. So that's it. If you please subscribe. If you like the video, please hit like, and please buy the ebook. Thank you.